So I already know that I'm pretty late on the Alex Caruso news, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have already seen the absolute heist that took place a few days ago, in which the Bulls traded Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey. Just outright, straight up, no draft capital, no cash compensation, no anything. A 1-to-1 trade which is something that never happens in the NBA anymore, and yet here we are. Now, this is a little bit of a different video. I'm gonna be talking about some offseason news and rumors and things like that, mainly pertaining to the Golden State Warriors. And then I'm gonna have a segment from the Gold-Blooded podcast that we did where we were talking about the Alex Caruso trade in detail. But Golden State is in an extremely interesting scenario. A lot of you guys already know about the Klay Thompson fiasco that is currently unfolding, him unfollowing the team on Instagram, which I didn't really care that much about when it happened. But given that contract negotiations have pretty much halted now, which, I mean, if tampering is still a thing, then that shouldn't even be a report, because it shouldn't have started yet. But I digress. We definitely are still at a point where I honestly don't know what his future is going to be. I assume that he would like to stay with this team by any means necessary, but if he just simply gets an offer that is too good to pass up, then he very well could be out of here. The Orlando Magic have been the main team that has been part of the conversation, but as I said, there's really no telling what his future is going to be, given that he's really not going to be getting the deal that he wants to get from pretty much any team in the league. He wanted 3 years, and teams are really only willing to offer him 2, including Golden State. I imagine that if he does re-sign, it's probably going to be 2 years guaranteed and a year either player option or non-guaranteed, which is sort of how Chris Paul's current contract is set up. It is going to be interesting. I do think that Malik Monk's contract kind of set the stage for what Klay Thompson could end up getting, because if Malik Monk couldn't even get 20 mil a year, I doubt that Klay Thompson is going to get 20 mil a year given his age and just what he provides to a team at this point. Obviously still a great shooter, a player that still commands a lot of attention even if people don't really want to believe that. The film doesn't lie. He attracted a lot of double teams even this season, which was probably one of the worst seasons of his entire career, but that value is potentially going to be offset by what he could look like physically next season, because this year it was apparent he's slowed down. The injuries do seem to be sort of catching up with him, as well as just him being 34, turning 35 years old. Doesn't really have the lateral quickness anymore, gets blown by a lot easier, and so his defensive issues are definitely going to be something to take into account, as well as just how well he moves on offense when he's attempting to create his own shot. Now, creating his own shot is something that he's not really known for, obviously, even in his prime. Pretty famously would put up insane shooting nights on basically no dribbles, no usage. So that's not really the part that's worrying to me. It's more so the defensive aspect, because as we know, it's pretty much like not even watching the same player that he was in his prime, which you wouldn't expect that. But I feel like that is the trade-off that you're going to have to keep in mind when keeping him on the roster, and also figuring out what the rest of the team around this core is going to look like to mitigate the weaknesses that they've shown so far. Klay Thompson, we just talked about. Steph seemed to have sort of lost a step, which, I mean, he is 36 years old, so I mean, that's to be expected. Even the fact that he is putting up numbers like this at that age is just ridiculous in its own right, and the fact that we are still talking about needing to build around him at all costs is just a testament to what he is actually doing. Still, second half of the season, it definitely seemed like he was slowing down a bit more. That could also just be the insane workload that he had to carry on this roster last season from having no secondary scoring option, or at least no consistent secondary scoring option. Draymond, when he was actually on the court last year, I actually believe that was one of his best overall seasons in recent memory. And you could say defensively he looked worse, but that's really just because just the defensive pieces around him at any given point were so bad that he was having to cover up so much that it made him look like a worse defender than he actually is. So the Warriors have already said our priorities are defense, perhaps getting a big, getting a second option. And I 100% agree with every single one. Paul George has been in talks the entire offseason, and I'm sort of on the fence about that. You're going to see that in this podcast clip right now. And so I will hand it off to us from yesterday. By the way, if you are a Warriors fan, which chances are if you're watching this, you are, we are doing a series during the offseason called Dynasty Rewind, which is basically just rewatching some iconic or, memorable games from the Golden State Warriors dynasty over the last 10 or so years. Our next rewatch is going to be the Warriors versus Wizards game in February of 2016, in which Steph Curry dropped 51 points and John Wall dropped 41. It's going to be one of my personal favorite games so far, and that will be happening on Thursday. If you are watching this before then, Thursday the 27th. So be on the lookout for that. But as of right now, I will hand it off to us and our talks about Paul George and the Chicago Bulls front office.
I don't believe in Paul George. I'll just say it. I don't. But I think if you're telling me that our options are rebuild Brandon Ingram and make him into a better player, I just think Paul George stylistically would fit our team the best.
Hey, man, we did it with Andrew Wiggins.
Oh, Lord.
No, I'm not trying to do that again. And I'm
trying to do that again.
Look, listen. And I'm going to be 100% honest with y'all. In a world where if we do a sign and trade, who do we get rid of? Let's say Klay does walk and he signs to another team with a different contract. I've been seeing, this is more so about Clippers Twitter, some absurd trade packages for Paul George. And I'm not even trolling when I say this. I've seen Paul George, PJ Tucker, and Amir Coffey for Andrew Wiggins, Kuminga, multiple picks, and I think Moody as well. I have been an advocate for getting Steph a second option. I'm not losing all of our wing depth for PG at his age. I just can't.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
That's not a smart idea. As much as people want to call Wiggins ass and say he's a negative asset, which I agree to some degree, he's still a good basketball player in my opinion. Kuminga is still a very good young player in my opinion. Moses Moody is, even though we don't use him, I don't mind him being traded, but like I'm not gonna sit here and like entertain all of those picks and all of those wings being gone for Paul George at 34.
I understand Paul George is a better player. I do think, again, stylistically, in terms of being a ball handler, a defensive player, I do think there's a lot of fit with him on this team with the shooting and the passing, the motion. I do feel like we could see a different version of Paul George on this team, but I also feel like the inconsistency with Paul George in the postseason, his overall injuries, his attitude, his excuses sometimes. I don't like the idea of saying, okay, Steph, you hoop. Okay, Paul George, here's your time. Like, I just don't really trust that. But he is the best star value out there that's somehow accessible. Even Lauri Markkanen is just way too much to try to get. I feel like the price of him is way too high at this point.
And you know how Danny Ainge, he's so stingy.
You know how you get down, bro.
He'll say, give me Steph, Draymond, Wiggins, Kuminga picks for that Lauri Markkanen, and just you know how he gets down.
Yes, he's not the Bulls front office who literally traded Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey with no picks.
Yo, can we talk? I ain't gonna lie, I know we were Warriors, but I know we're a Warriors podcast. I know we're a Warriors channel. Can we just talk about that fleece of a trade, bro? Like,
chill on my city. No, your team pissed me off the other day.
How do you manage to do some shit like that? No, like second round, first round, no, not even cash. Bro, we had
not even cash consideration, just straight up.
Listen. We had to pay to get rid of Corey Joseph. These niggas even have to pay.
And KB, I think the worst part of it too is like, even if you think Josh Giddey has potential to be better, which again, I do think Josh Giddey will be better in Chicago. The fact that you find a way to do business with the team that has the most draft picks in the NBA, and you can't get one. So a team that is basically trying to rebuild and retool.
After what they were asking for at the deadline. The reason why our trade talks fell apart is because we didn't want to give up Kuminga. And everybody like at the time was like, yo, what the hell? Like they asked for Kuminga for Alex Caruso? Are they out of their minds? And then the Andre Drummond situation where they were trying to trade him and they said, no, we want to trade Andre Drummond because we're trying to make the playoffs.
I don't know what you all got going on. I don't know what Sam Presti has on the Bulls to even say, like, let's role play here for a second.
And we have exactly 14 first round picks.
The Bulls go one answer, Josh Giddey. They just wanted only Josh Giddey.
But who, by the way, is a contract OKC was trying to get off of.
Sam Presti had to have had some sort of influence because maybe he was like, hey man, so Josh Giddey, I mean, you saw what he did his rookie season when, he was the main ball handler. So, he hasn't done that, recently just because, Shay's blossomed, J-Dub's blossomed. So, his role has kind of changed and he hasn't really adjusted. But hey man, if he got the ball back in his hands, he could probably be like a, borderline all-star.
And they got sold. And they said, in return, just give us Caruso, you guys wanted to get him off. I think he wants to leave. It'd just be best in the situation. A nice veteran guy for a young player. I think you guys actually won the trade.
The problem, Chad, is regardless of what Josh becomes, right? Even if we all eat our words and Josh becomes this all-star level player, The fact that in the moment of the trade, a asset in Josh Giddey whose value has waned, you could not get a single pick, not 2 seconds, not even a fake first for Josh Giddey.
So the Thunder right now have, between now and 2030, they have 8 first-round picks with no protections on them. That's just the picks without protections that they just own outright. And they have a bunch of other first-round picks that are protected from other teams. Some of them are like 1 through 14, 1 through 6, 1 through 10. Dude,
They have assets to pick from, and you couldn't get not one.
You could have
like
gone.
that's literally like one of the things that they are known for, is having an absurd amount of first round picks that they really don't even need anymore.
They don't, because they literally have the youngest team in the NBA, I'm pretty sure. You have a core of SGA, J-Dub, and Chet, which is a really good trio, along with a bunch of other young pieces as well. They're probably going to look to move those picks to go get another like veteran role player as well. But if you're OKC, what's the point of even moving these picks if you can just flip players and get them for Alex Caruso? Just do Aaron Wiggins for Lauri Markkanen.
I'm not going to count Josh Giddey out. I do think Josh will look a lot better. That's fine. I do feel like Josh Giddey will be a better player in Chicago. But the point is, regardless of the reality of that take, for you to make the trade where his value is at the lowest and you get no other big draft return, it's just asinine, bro. That's insanely bad front office management.